ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome to our English news edition coming to you from Canal, Algérie. I'm your host, Maysa Dumas. To the headlines. In solidarity with the Malian people, donations are sent from Boufarik Military Airport. The official visit of the Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Lieutenant General Saeed Shingriha, to Cairo, where he took part in the Defense Exhibition EDEX 2021, come to an end on Friday. Pursuing the 8th high-level conference on peace and security in Africa on Friday in Oran province, participants met in closed sessions where they discussed issues such as security in the Sahel, coordination for a better local response, and international forums. And following the normalization agreement between Morocco and the Zionist entity, the Moroccans did not stop their demonstrations, especially since the Zionist visit the minister to Rabat. First in our news, from the military airport of Boufarik, 85 tons of foodstuffs, medicines, and doses of COVID-19 vaccine transport on board of 4 military planes on the National People's Army to the airport of Gao and Bamako on Thursday in solidarity with the Malian people. Algeria remains a strategic and reliable partner in the Mediterranean basin in the fight against climate change, a message from the President of the Council of the Nation, or Upper House of Parliament, Salah Goujil, which was relied on Friday in Brussels by the Vice President and Representative Lila Brahimi, taking part in the 7th Summit of Presidents of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean. The official visit of the Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Lieutenant General Saeed Shingriha, to Cairo, where he took part in the Defense Exhibition EDEX 2021, come to an end on Friday. More details with Manal Maafa.
At the end of his official visit to Egypt, the Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Lieutenant General Saeed Shingriha, was greeted by the assistants of the Defense Minister and Military Production of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Major General Mohammed Abdel Munaim Salim and Major General Ahmed Hamdi Abdelaziz. During this 4-day official visit, the two officials discussed the strengthening of relations and the reinforcement of cooperation between the National People's Army and the Egyptian Armed Forces. The Chief of Staff also met with Army General Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Minister of Defense and Military Production of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Mohammed Ahmed Zali Mohammed. This was an opportunity to highlight the deep and excellent relations between the two brotherly countries. During this meeting, the Chief of Staff of the National People's Army gave to his host an important military document related to the participation of the National People's Army, represented by the 8th Armored Brigade in the War of October 8, 1973. During his visit, the Lieutenant General Saeed Shingriha was also received by the Major General Oussama Askar, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Arab Republic of Egypt. The two parties discussed the situation prevailing in North and the Sahel region and ways and means to contribute to the consolidation of efforts to establish peace and security at both regional and continental levels. During his stay, the Lieutenant General Saeed Shingriha, accompanied by his delegation, visited the exhibition EDEX 2021 and then inquired closely about the various weapons systems and the new military technologies displayed.
Pursuing the 8th high-level conference on peace and security in Africa on Friday in Oran province, participants met in closed sessions on the agenda. Issues such as security in the Sahel, coordination for better local response, and international forums were discussed.
Meetings were held in two sessions, the first of which shed light on the legal frameworks and mechanism currently in place in the fight against terrorism, with the exchange of visions and experiences in the field of the fight against this phenomenon at the level of the continent. Objectives that Algeria is working hard to defend on behalf of the African Union at the level of the United Nations Security Council.
Several countries are counting on Algeria's role in African Union to enhance coordination and cooperation among African countries. Algeria's role in African is unknown, and several countries are counting on Algeria to enhance coordination and cooperation in Africa.
The second session focused on improving coordination between the African Union Peace and Security Council and the 8th Week Group to support Africa's voice in the United Nations Security Council.
All the progress we can make to have peace, security and governance in Africa must be driven by the fight against terrorism, which will also contribute to Africa's development at the international level.
Since yesterday, we have been engaging how to address the recent resurgence of unconstitutional changes of government. How do we combat terrorism and violent extremism using examples and lessons like countries like that, and just recently how we are most importantly improving the coordination. African voice is very critical at the international system, knowing fully well that we need a leading member states of the African Union, Algeria, to continue to play that role. And of course, we would like to see Algeria continue to be represented in these meetings, whether at the African Union or at the international level.
The participants in this meeting were unanimous in saying that cooperation between the United Nations and the African Union is one of the essential instruments to better fight against terrorism in Africa. They also discussed the role of new technologies, especially in communication networks, in the recruitment of terrorist elements and cryptocurrency and the means to counter them.
A high-level delegation headed to Tlemcen province so as to participate in the Oran Symposium on Peace and Security in Africa. The delegation was briefed on the African Institute for Water and Energy Sciences, which was established within the framework of the African University. They also visited the Tlemcen Museum of Art and History and expressed their admiration for the historical evidence that this museum holds. On the sidelines of the high-level conference on security and peace in Africa, the head of the Algerian diplomacy, Ramtal Al-Mamra, said that the Moroccan Zionist military alliance reflects the junction of two territorial expansionisms driven by the denial of the very existence of their victims, robbed of their national rights. Ramtal Al-Mamra was speaking to the National League crisis on Friday. The misguided of the Moroccan authorities highlights an unprecedented thrust of creeping Zionist hegemony, explains the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who recalled that Algeria has no political gain from the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Following the normalization agreement between Morocco and the Zionist entity, the Moroccans did not stop their demonstrations, especially since the visit of the Zionist Defense Minister to Rabat. The details with Rania Al-Bahri.
The Moroccan forces suppressed the demonstrations organized against normalization, especially after the visit of the Zionist Minister of Defense to Rabat. According to the Moroccan Front of Support for Palestine and against the normalization of relations between Morocco and the Zionist entity, this mobilization aims at canceling the illegitimacy of the regime. Since the beginning of the demonstrations, all forms of repression have been used by the Moroccan regime. Security has been set up to prevent the holding of anti-normalization demonstrations. During the demonstrations organized in 37 Moroccan cities, many demonstrators were violently repressed by the Makhzen. Some of them were beaten up in the police stations in Agadir and in Tangier. The Moroccan Front took the opportunity to its absolute rejection of seeing Morocco serving as a springboard for the Zionist entity to carry out its expansion project to the detriment of the rights of the Palestinians. The Moroccan furthermore condemned the visit of the Zionist Minister of Defense and their reaction to all the agreements concluded between the Moroccan regime and the Zionist entity, especially concerning security, seeing it as a danger for Morocco and the whole region.
The agreement with the Zionist entity is a betrayal for Moroccans and a danger for the country and the whole region, according to the president of the Moroccan Observatory Against Normalization. The Moroccans intend to continue the mobilization and maintain the pressure on the Moroccan regime until it reverses its position, said Ahmed Ouihman.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بالنسبة لنا في l'observatoire contre la normalisation, on considère toute forme de normalisation.
At the Observatory Against Normalization, we do consider any form of normalization as a betrayal, precisely normalization at the military and security levels and at the level of exchange. For us, any form of normalization in Morocco is a threat above all, and a threat to the whole region and Algeria as well. That's why we denounce normalization and lead our struggle with sit-ins, protests and communiques, peacefully but firmly, to put an end to this disgraceful agreement with the Zionist entity. It is an endless struggle. The Moroccan people consider the Palestinian cause as their own, and we will not stop until the closure of this liaison office, which aims to divide Algeria and Morocco.
حل الرباط بحول الله وقوته. تحية للشعب الجزائري ولكل أحرار المغرب العربي.
Sahrawi people are daily violated by the Moroccan occupier. The Sahrawi activist Sultana Khaya and her family were victims of a new aggression by the Makhzen authorities. Rania al-Bahri.
Members of the Moroccan security forces erupted once again the house of the Sahrawi activist Sultana Khaya, and this is not the first violation. Acts of torture were also committed against the Sahrawi activist and her family members.
احنا في هذه الليلة اللي هي 379 ليلة من الحصار.
We are 379 days of notice. My family and I are still assigned to residence. That night, we were brutally attacked by the Moroccan occupation forces. Even the few people who still have the right to visit us were searched and humiliated. I was bombed and knocked down for having contested this intrusion. My family members were still subjected to the humiliation and aggression of members of the Moroccan forces. Even a baby under 2 years old was not spared by this aggression. We receive all this torture because we demand our right to self-determination. Indeed, this defender of the rights of the Sahrawi to self-determination has been assigned to residence since November 2020 by the authorities of the Moroccan occupation, who never present a justification for these arbitrary measures. The illegal detention of Sultana Khaya and her family members within the framework of a wider repression carried out by the Moroccan authorities on Sahrawi militants.
A sit-in was observed on Friday morning in front of the headquarters of the company, Siemens Gamesa, in Bilbao, Spain. The protesters denounced the company's projects in the occupied Sahrawi territories, projects which have been judged illegal by the European Court of Justice. The demonstrators call for the cessation of these activities in the occupied Sahrawi territories. By signing agreements with the Zionist entity, the Moroccan kingdom loses part of its autonomy because of the establishment of the Zionist intelligence services in the country, which will have more and more access to sensitive information concerning it, declared Mr. Abd al-Moumni. At the end of the visit, the Zionist Defense Minister Benny Gantz to Morocco on November 24th, a security and military cooperation agreement was signed between the two countries, causing discontent in the Moroccan society. The representative of the Polisario Front in Europe and the European Union, Abi Bushra Bashir, deplored on Friday the call of the European Union Council against the judgments of the European Court, which cancelled the new European-Moroccan agreements that included Western Sahara to the Moroccan territory. A signing of a partnership agreement between Algeria Venture and the Italian investment fund CDP Venture Capital. The fund will invest in Algerian startups and innovative technologies, according to the agreement signed in Rome between the two parties in the presence of the minister delegate in charge of the knowledge and economy startups, Walid Yassin Al-Mahdi.
We're very pleased to have signed this partnership agreement. It is very important for us to strengthen and foster relationships with our Mediterranean neighbors because innovation is global, doesn't know borders, and it's going to be very helpful for our startups and our investments, our investors to foster the relationship between the two countries, exchange knowledge and partnership.
This partnership between Algeria and Italy is very important. As you know, the Algerian and the Italian government have been working to foster the relationship between our two countries, especially in the economic field and especially when it comes to promoting SMEs and startups and the innovation. And also today, the signature of this memorandum of understanding is a very big step forward into strengthening the relationship between our two countries, as I said, but also into promoting innovation in both sides and to help startups to get access to investments, the investment that can fit their needs. Today, Algerian startups have to be more open to the world and to the, especially to our very important partners, and Italy is undoubtedly one of the most important partners for Algeria today.
The province of Oran will host the 2022 Mediterranean Games, where new infrastructures are being finalized for the purpose, notably the CIG Sports Complex, which will be a centerpiece of the competition. Leticia Sidqawi.
Several sites will host the various competitions of the next Mediterranean Games or in 2020. The new CIG Sports Complex is one of the most important sites to host this 19th edition. The sports center has a football stadium with 20,000 seats capacity, all covered, and other spaces dedicated to other disciplines. This new compound is occupied with a natural grass surface that is undergoing the last touches before being delivered to host the football matches of this important sporting event.
We designed the stadium the English style to allow fans to be well seated. Moreover, all the stands are covered, including the official one.
Specialists continue the rehabilitation work on the ground to ensure good lawn. The province has connected this pool to the drinking water supply network at the moment and is carrying out a sound blasting operation. At the end of the work, this project will meet all the requirements. This new CIG Sports Complex also includes an athletics field, a sports hall, and an Olympic swimming pool that meets all international standards. Ahead of the Mediterranean Games, all efforts are being pledged will be operational.
That was it for our news bulletin. Thanks for tuning into our program. Good night.